Okay, so my presentation is on immunizations and vaccines. And so when we did this, we were kind of talking about how immunizations and vaccines were kind of a controversy topic, and that there are quite a few reasons why some parents don't vaccinate their children. And after we did research in our literature review, we found that it was actually a very small percentage that was just their beliefs, but there was finances that went involved, and the biggest thing was lack of education. So we did this research, and it has shown that there's been a big drop in immunizations in the United States, especially with preschoolers, that it's just been a major drop compared to other countries. And so our main goal behind doing this was to find out if people thought it was important to vaccinate their children, and then if they knew how much the Affordable Care Act of 2010 covered for their vaccinations, or if people even knew about the Affordable Care Act of 2010 and how that helped with the price of immunizations. So we had each of our members survey 15 individuals. That ended up being 60 people total. And they were asked a series of questions. Well, they weren't questions, they were just statements. And they were supposed to rate whether they agreed, disagreed, or neither agreed nor disagreed on these statements. And the statements were talked about the Affordable Care Act, it talked about risks, talked about autism, and it talked about the cost of immunizations, and then just demographics like their income, their gender, and things like that. So what we found was that, if you can see in this, the first results, is that many people, almost everybody who we interviewed, did think that it was important for individuals to be vaccinated. And our population was kind of limited. We interviewed within our wards, so that could be skewed on what most people think. It's an LDS population that we interviewed. But there was hardly anybody who thought that they weren't important, and then there was a few people who thought that didn't agree or disagree. The other thing, this isn't quite as big of a dramatic thing as our last finding, but it's that individuals who believed that the Affordable Care Act, that with the Affordable Care Act, that cost was no longer a concern. So that shows us that quite a few people do know about the Affordable Care Act and do know that it would take care of cost of immunizations if individuals were not able to pay. And then same thing, there was a portion who disagreed, and a portion who neither agreed nor disagreed. And then this is our conclusions. We found that most people did think that it was important to vaccinate their children and did believe that the Affordable Care Act did find a way. We did have a few things that could have gone better. It doesn't tell us how much, our survey didn't tell us how much the Affordable Care Act covered, and it mostly was asking individuals what they thought other people thought. So it's not necessarily even their own views and opinions, it's just what they thought the majority of people thought. So it was kind of a limited project, but we did find out good things, that many people think that it's important to vaccinate their children, and that many people do know and utilize the Affordable Care Act. So that is my poster on immunizations and vaccines.